not having a tan, I wish it was darker. Now I realize, like, it's literally the same light. I'm in the same room with the same light on.
It's
It's just,
amazing. It's so bright.
I'm telling you,
And, like,
it's,
crystal clear. Oh my god.
I feel like, because when I was doing Taylor's podcast, I was like, I need
Taylor
to
Tillich.
change Taylor to like, I need to change the books, because she goes, or, well, she didn't say anything, but we were talking about something and I noticed I had Ayn
I'm, like,
Rand
leaning
on my
forward to read them.
bookshelf.
You have what
I
on
was
there?
like, Ayn Rand right
Oh,
here.
no. Mm-mm. Nope.
Which I have read. It's just that I was like, I wish it wasn't right
Right there.
there.
Yeah, that sends the wrong vibes for sure. It's a good thing we're not
And then
on.
there's also Cricket for Dummies right here.
I should have used
Nestled
that.
right beside a Flannery O'Connor book. So I'm organized.
My aunt, so I read both The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged.
Mm-hmm.
And Atlas Shrugged is currently it's being used as a like the base, because on top of my bookshelf there's like a dip, and so if you put anything on the top of it you can't see it, so I have it underneath the pretty thing.
It's a prop. You're using it as a
I'm
prop.
using it as a prop, holding up a picture and a cross.
Oh, I'm sure she'd love that.
We would.
For all of our listeners who haven't read Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged,
Don't.
Ayn Rand is an interesting character. Don't. She's an interesting character. There was a guy who, oh, they're not going to see the video, are they?
No. No, we don't know how to do that.
Who gave me those books in high school, who is a firm libertarian, and if you read them, which I did in high school because I thought, oh, I'll be cool,
Yeah,
and do that.
I read The Fountainhead.
It's an insane exploration into individuality and selfishness.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Basically,
I read The Fountainhead when I was in seminary. And I think I was like initially just reading it because it was like, of course you like, this is, if you're like gonna read the classics, you have to read Ayn Rand.
yeah.
And so I didn't really know a ton, except that when my dad saw that I was reading her, he was like, oh, he goes, I used to be a really big fan of hers because I believed like all that philosophy, but it's really terrible and anti-Christian. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay.
It's
like,
very anti-communal, I'll say it. It's very much about like the individual's
which I think is what
ability
he was intending for. Like, he was like, this isn't how Christians should treat each other, or treat other people. It's like, we're not individuals. But like,
and like the self-actualization of like, I can do anything
by myself.
I don't need anyone else.
Anything else. Yeah. And then and I liked The Fountainhead. I will say I liked The Fountainhead.
Yeah, the books aren't bad. I don't think she intended this to be taken the way it did.
She did, because she had a whole...
You think so?
Oh, yeah. No, because she had a whole thing. It was like she was going around teaching this. This was like
never mind. Chris, don't listen to me. I've just read the books and knew a couple libertarians. Christy is the expert. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt that
she was like a much worse person, actually.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not entirely shocked.
No. But so I didn't read Atlas Shrugged because Atlas Shrugged is huge. It's a monstrous book. And then I was working at the aforementioned school that I was working at, which was a Christian liberal arts university. And the president of that school was like a massive Ayn Rand fan and was like constantly talking about how we needed to base all of our like efforts and school philosophy stuff, again, at a Christian school, where he was repeatedly saying things like, Jesus, 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 was like touting this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to read this book and see. And I was sitting there reading that book and I just wanted to drown myself in a river. I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever read.
I picked this book up since like probably 1999. And it says in the back, in any Ayn Rand novel, you found more than great works of art. You have found a philosophy of reason. Activism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand.
Yep.
In order to define, explain, and present my concept of man, I had to become a philosopher in the specific meaning of the term. I don't even know what that means in the specific meaning of the term. Aren't we all okay? Whatever.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
aren't we all philosophers in that way? Then?
Anyway.
Cool.
Anyway, what did I just do? I'm just over here pushing buttons accidentally.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I didn't mind the readings. I didn't know about the background, but
Yeah.
anyway, I
I
just
liked
saw
The
that book up
Fountainhead.
there,
The
and it was
Fountainhead was
like
a good book.
if Taylor asked me about philosophical leanings of Ayn Rand, I'll have no idea.
Atlas Shrugged was
Except
a
for the
beast, but
except for what I've just spouted to you. Right next to a wind in the door,
my dad
Madeline.
my
My
dad
angel.
told me that people who follow Ayn Rand are in a cult. He was like, I used to be in that cult.
Well, to be fair to everybody that likes Ayn Rand, we're all in cults of our own creation.
That's true. We're all in our
But
own
yeah, I
cult.
mean, I think any philosophy or political system or theological system that leans into individualism, self-actualization, and like that could sound very Buddhist, so I don't want to like take it down that road, but like I think if you move into this world of those things, but also in incredible selfishness, I think
Yeah.
that's where the Buddhists don't do that. Like
Yeah.
they have the two other parts, but they also believe in community and doing things for others and helping others to reach goals. It just feels like that's where she stops
Yeah.
in that
She was
world.
like, nope, fuck everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, well, now that I'm self-actualized
I
and independent, I don't need anybody. And I'm like,
and I
well,
don't want to help anybody. And
and I
yeah.
don't want to help anybody. And you all are destroying my visionary genius.
Yeah.
And then we have JD Vance.
uh,
And then JD Vance was immediately born.
and then JD Vance was like, this is my new JD Vance.
Right.
She's yeah. I mean,
um,
well, anyway, so Atlas Shrugged is being used as a prop. The Fountainhead, I don't know what I did with that one. I don't like to display them though. I have them kind of hidden away because I don't want people to think that I'm a
mine were hidden away until I got a fancy. Stuart got me a fancy new
fancy
computer.
new
No one
computer
could
and
have
I can see
seen.
everything.
This
I
would just
keep
be
like
like,
looking. I'm like, let's see what books are back there, Leah.
right? Yeah, you can. There's nothing real. There's a David Bowie
Nice. I like that. I like that.
biography.
How are your books
I
organized?
Good and Bad Religion, which helped with my last. They're not.
Okay.
Just they just appeared
They just
and they
you
went
just
there.
put them okay.
Gordon Kaufman, who is also my theological daddy, if you want to get weird. The Theological Imagination, right next to the Gospel According to the Klan.
Nice. Oh, that I want to read that. Kelly Baker, right?
Yep, it is indeed. So there's lead theology up there. My nemesis that I talk about a lot. And then Westboro Baptist is up here. Lily
Oh,
Phelps is
mhm.
her autobiography. There's not. There used to be, but I moved around so much
Yeah.
with my books that I think I have PTSD from organizing them and then them becoming unorganized. I'm not going to say it's a good system, and I wouldn't recommend it, but it is what it is.
So
I
my
can't.
one of my dearest friends and colleagues, Kyle Greenwood, is the most organized human being I have ever known, and he has his books organized. I can't remember what system he uses. It's not the Dewey Decimal System. It's a different, but it's a system like that. Like it's an official system of organizing his books, and he has it all in an Excel spreadsheet. And if you ask him where a
Oh
book is, yeah, it's the most organized.
no,
He's the most organized human being. He's an Old
I do.
Testament
There
scholar
is
that
some
should flow. Like we should all be like, yep, this all makes sense. But he one time walked into my office
no.
and he said, Christy, are your books organized at all? And I said, they are. And he said, are they organized by chaos? And I was
Mm.
like, no, they actually are organized. I have them organized by,
I know what's happening.
yeah, like they're organized basically by
Like Stuart.
subject. Like,
No.
like my literature books are all together and then alphabetized by author. And then it's
Oh,
like
Christy, you do have them
topic.
organized
I
though.
do. But it only makes sense to me. Like if
Okay,
you were
but
to walk
but
into
they
my
are there.
office, you probably wouldn't figure it out. You
I
might
do
because you
have.
have the same
I think
one.
I started. You actually are. My desk is unfortunately catered towards the chaos section because I do have like Northern Ireland, Scotland, world religions, and then like ministry stuff.
Yeah, it's like topics.
Yeah,
Like I have
yeah, and then
like
this is just
Doctrine of
kind of
God
like
books are all together. Christology
Right.
books are all together. Pneumatology
My
books are all
theology
together.
books are all. It actually should show you what I've been. I think it's a reflection of what I'm researching as opposed to like
That makes sense
life.
too.
Is that I
Also
haven't
that,
done.
yeah, like when I was
Yeah.
doing my PhD, all the books for my dissertation were in the same spot, you know. Now I have different
Yeah.
books that are in like a easily accessible spot, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah,
This
if
is the
you
research. This is the research section. So it's
yeah,
just chaos
if
here.
you if again, you probably would be like, "Oh no, this makes sense now," but most people would walk in and just like, "Did you just like vomit the books onto the shelves?"
If it works for you, I don't. I mean, at
It's
this
just
stage,
I don't know who's
I have too many.
I don't
So
know who the authors are half the time. I know what book I want, but I can't remember the author's name. And so if it was like organized by alphabetizing by last name of the author, I would never find any books. I'd be like, what book is this?
you'll appreciate this. So I have copies of my 3 books. Humble brag,
Yeah.
but they're lost currently somewhere in. So I wanted to make sure because I was going to that AAR conference, I was going to sell some of my books, but I want to make sure because you only get so many free copies
Yeah.
that I have at least one. I know I have one of my first one, which is I only have one, and
Okay.
then I have like 45 million of bad theology, and then I have like 6 of bad theology and COVID. So I needed to make sure that I didn't sell one of my own copies, which I have done in the past.
Yeah. Because that
Um,
would suck.
they're lost in here, and I wrote them, but I can't find them.
Can't find them.
So that's a problem.
Um
That's an academic problem to have. So if you
I
have one of my
have
books, you want to sell it back to me, that's cool too.
I had the same thing happen with mine because I got so many free copies. And then I like a couple of people were like, "Can I just buy that copy from you?" And I was like, "Okay." And then the next thing I knew, I didn't have a copy for myself. And I was like,
Yeah,
damn it, now I have to buy a copy for myself because you
that's what
should
happened
have
with
your own book.
my dissertation. Well, now the COVID book is a problem because it's in hardback, but originally when it was just 2, my dissertation was like $75 on uh,
No, I
Amazon,
know
which is
it is like $75 because I looked because
it's
I was
fine.
like, maybe
But
I'll buy it.
I didn't have a copy for years and years and years. And then may she rest in peace. My grandma passed away, and I got a whole box of her stuff. And actually, in it was
Was one of your
was the book.
Oh, that's very
Yeah.
sweet. That's
Oh
very
yeah.
sweet.
So I'll find it. So it came back to me via that, and I'm glad it was that because I have a little inscription to her inside for it. So that's kind of
Yeah,
nice to have that. So that's my one copy of that, and then
that
the
is
other 2
nice. Yeah.
I just have. So I but thankfully no one's passed and left it to me now. But so yeah, welcome to Theology on the Rocks,
Yeah,
guys.
welcome
We're
to
Christy
Theology on
and
the
I
Rock.
have books. We have
We
books.
have books.
We have
We
books.
also have drinks.
And
I want to take a sip of this because I'm
me
curious.
too, because I have a
So,
big
so
spherical ice
we
cube in it.
decided to, did you use spherical ice? Yours is fancy.
Use is who do you think did this?
Stuart did it for you. Got it.
Yeah,
Well,
100%.
cheers.
Ooh,
Look, I
we'll
know.
talk about the difference in color in a minute as well.
Mm.
Oh, that's
Oh,
tasty.
oh, I like that.
Now it's heavy on the old whiskey whisk,
It is heavy on the whiskey whisk. So we
but
decided to do a St.
ain't
Patrick's
bad.
Day cocktail, and I have the Drinking with the Saints book via our bestie Catherine. So
Thanks, Catherine.
this is a Irish ale cocktail, which is supposed to be Irish whiskey and lime and ginger beer. And I'm not usually a big fan of ginger beer, but this is really tasty.
It works with the lime. There's something about it
Hmm.
that's helping. Also, I will say I have
Well, because it's whiskey
hibiscus
heavy.
ginger beer. That's why mine's a
Yeah,
different
yours is
color.
hibiscus. How's that hibiscus ginger beer?
I think it's making the difference for me. I think
Yeah.
it needs a little fruit with that whiskey for me.
What kind of whiskey did you use?
Well, you're setting me up
I
because
know.
you know what kind of whiskey I used. Which is fine. It's not my fault that I live in an oppressive household. Um, I mean that in the least real way possible. All right. So we have I'm using no, I'm not using Jameson. That's what I wanted to use was Jameson. Because it doesn't have to be a fancy well, I
Right,
don't know
it
if
just
there's
said
a
Irish
fancy
whiskey, it didn't
Irish
say
whiskey,
anything, like,
but it's
specific.
Johnny Walker because Stuart said it was basically the same thing. And he let me tell you something about the Scottish and the Irish. Which tasting it, I feel like it probably is kind of the same thing.
It
It's just
probably
like
is.
a blended whiskey. It's not like a fancy whiskey.
Yeah.
The Scottish have a what I would like to call a charm off with the Irish in
Yeah,
the sense of that they want to be more charming. And honestly, as a Southerner who also likes to be, I mean, we have shows called Southern Charm. Like, we want to be charming too,
you do.
but
Yeah.
we know that we can't out charm the Irish. So I'm not sure what the Scottish think that they're going to do to the Irish either. The Irish are just charming.
I have theories about this.
I want to hear them. Um, but I will say, I think it's the irreverent, drunken, laissez-faire nature, but also, this like bootstrap, I'm gonna survive kind of
Yeah.
thing too. And I taught a class on Scottish and Irish history with Scott Spurlock, actually, at University of Glasgow. We co-taught that at Edinburgh and Glasgow. And he did the Scottish parts and I did the Irish parts. And I learned a lot. It still doesn't explain to me, though, what's going on.
My theory is entirely made up of my own notions and not based on any
Well, that's
conversations
what's your theory.
I've had with anyone. But
Okay.
I feel like because two things. One is that Americans tend to mix up Irish and Scottish stuff a lot. Like they
I saw a lot
assume,
of kilts in those
yeah,
parades for
a lot
St.
of
Patrick's
kilts
Day.
and a lot of bagpipes.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, this is Irish. And it's like, actually,
Actually, you've just combined a bunch of
you've
stuff.
just
Yeah.
combined two cultures into one. And
Yep.
there's not any kind of sense of like, and I think that because everything is assumed to be Irish, I think the Scottish get a bit of a like chip on their shoulder because it's like we exist and we are not Irish and you're all but you're also like using all of our stuff and pretending like it's Irish. And I think that's where at least
Yeah,
for
I sometimes will work at a local bar just so that I can have fun sometimes. And I worked on the Saturday before St. Patrick's Day, and there was a guy who came up, and he was, I mean, just grotesquely decked out. I said something. I was like, oh, I, I don't know if, because I was talking about Stuart, and I said, I don't know if he'll be going crazy. And then the guy said, because I knew him, he was from here, a local guy, and he goes, well, if they had their own day, we would do that for them too. And I went, they do have their own
they
day.
do.
And he goes, oh. He went, oh,
Oh.
what's it called? I said St. Andrew's Day. And he goes, oh, I haven't heard of that one.
See, and this is it. I feel
And
like the
I was
Scottish
like,
are
oh
like, we
no,
have a day. We have the
they have
kilts
a
and the
day.
bagpipes. We drink too.
Yeah.
Why don't
Yeah, the
we
English
have
have
big parties
St.
for
George.
us? You know, I think
No,
that's a
I
bit
get
of
it.
it.
I would be really upset because you do have, and if you talk about in the States, like you did have a lot of Scottish immigration as well. It's not just so as I proudly stated that Chris and I are going to talk about Ireland today and celebrate St. Patrick's, I'm using Scottish whiskey so that I can honor Stuart's
Well,
background.
I'm gonna admit something to you as well that I also have Scottish whiskey, and it's because I don't have any. I my options were Colorado whiskey or Scottish whiskey, and I felt like Scottish whiskey at least was like
It's not
over there.
Scotch, is it?
It is.
Is it? Oh dear Jesus Christy. He's
That's
gonna
all I
be even more
had.
mad at you. He's gonna be more mad at you for that.
Well, it's a cheap one. It's not a good one. I
I
used
know, but
I used
he'll
a
listen to
like
that.
meh
Stuart, just
scotch,
close your ears.
but it's all I had.
I know, I'm not mad. But he's just gonna be disappointed, honestly. But you might be mad actually about that one. That one's a sacred one. But I think, yeah, the Scottish approach, I mean, Christy and I both got our degrees in Scotland. I lived in Ireland for a year to do my field work. And it is very different. I mean, they're very different cultures. So it's interesting
Yeah.
they get amalgamated. I think they get amalgamated in so much as it's a transplant to the States in
Yeah.
a way. Like I don't necessarily see that happening in the British Isles, like the bagpipes and the kilts and then just the shamrock
Yeah, no,
monstrosities
and
everywhere.
I feel like I realized how much like, when I first moved to Scotland and I realized how much our celebrations are just, like, nonsensical
Mhm.
mishmashes of things, and then I felt bad about it, and I was like, "Oop,"
Which
like
is kind of how we should describe the American people is a what did
yes.
you say? Mishmash, a ridiculous
Just
mishmash.
a yeah, just a like, an absolute chaotic mash of, like, here are thoughts or things that we think are maybe associated with a culture, but we didn't actually put effort into figuring that out or
Right.
making sure it was correct or doing any kind of homework. Let's just get
I'm
drunk, you know? I think
let's get drunk. I
that
mean, that's it.
that's what
Let's
we
do it.
do
I
on all sorts of like, Cinco de Mayo, we don't half the time, we don't even know what that's about, and we're just,
right.
"Let's get
Yep.
drunk," and so,
Let's drink.
anyway, here's
And,
to
well,
St.
honestly,
Patrick
if
and
we
St.
made St.
Andrew.
Andrews St. Andrew here's yeah, cheers, St. Andrew.
Cheers to both of them.
Isn't it in November, I think?
You know, we should
St.
know
Andrew's
that.
Day?
We should know
I
that.
should. I mean, I taught the class. I should. I know Burns Night's in January. But yeah. So that's the. I will say it doesn't help that my long term boyfriend before Stuart was from Northern Ireland as well. That probably is not like it's not helpful to the cause, but
It
I think it is one of the things every year where we go out and Stuart's just like, oh my God,
yeah.
like what is happening?
Why is
Like he
oh,
understands the July 4th stuff, but he'll go out and like he is, I think, yearly amazed by our dedication to the green. And then
it
he's also, I think part of it too is because he's with me. And like, this isn't me being a contrarian. I've never really dug into my history because I think it felt like a lot of work. I will probably one day when I don't have to research other things. I
yeah,
probably will
yeah.
do that. I know my last name's Robinson, but like, and there's my mom's maiden name's Baxter, so that's probably Scottish. But like, I don't know. Like, I know two branches very specifically, but the sort of Euro branches, I have no idea. I'm
My oldest niece did all of our genealogy for us.
not.
And so I know on my dad's side, we had been told, and this is also, I think, again, part of what I was saying earlier. We were told my whole life that we were Irish, like 100%. My grandparents would swear up and down that we were completely Irish. My grandma would always be like, "Oh, you're such a good Irish girl." Like it was this huge thing.
Wow.
It was a lot. Um, we're not Irish like at all.
It's like her brain just explodes.
So I write if she ever knew. So my niece did all of this background on our family, and basically we were English nobility who were,
No,
but
fancy.
they were the ones who like were in charge of a part of Ireland. So we were basically the oppressors of Ireland. We were the bad
Hmm.
guys.
Hmm.
And then
That tracks. That tracks.
during Oliver Cromwell's time, we were on the
Yep.
wrong side of things there.
Oh no,
And so
Christy.
we had to flee
Oh
to
no.
America. And
Oh no.
so that's when that's when the Whaleys came to the States.
You were you were on like maybe one of if not the other than the snakes, the biggest villain of Ireland's like the
Yes.
whole
No,
country.
yeah, we're
Like
like
basically you were on the side of their biggest villain.
we're completely the bad guys in all of that. And so when I
That's
found
so
that
funny.
out, I was like newly fresh in Scotland, and she found out like we were the bad guys there. One of our ancestors was the guy who destroyed all of the monasteries during the Reformation, went around and destroyed them all except for his own. So that's the only one still standing. Um like I mean we're the sheriff of Nottingham is back there too. Like we're constantly
Yeah,
the bad guys, and that continued in the States for quite some time as well. So
okay. Well, at
but
least
all
you
of the
know.
like sheen of like I'm Irish, this is my holiday, just all of a sudden kind of fell away. And then I was living in Scotland and
You
I was
probably
like,
should not celebrate it at all.
I
You
know.
should
I
probably go to church and pray about it.
right? I put black on and I repent. on behalf of my ancestors. So sorry. We were
Yeah, I
shitty.
mean, so the part-time historian, a great deal of the South was not colonized, but was occupied by Scots Irish. So it's very possible. But I mean, again, I haven't done it. I don't.
Yeah.
And we did have someone in my family who did go back to that was in the Baxter line. And I mean, that if you've ever had Baxter soup, it's a pretty big name in Scotland. So I think it's fairly easy, that
Yeah.
one. The Robinsons are a little more difficult because you would say that's kind of a Scandinavian name, but then you also get a lot of Robinsons in uh, Northern Ireland and
Yeah.
weirdly the Lake District. If you ever, I always stand in front of places if it's Robinson, and you'll see the picture of me with peace signs over and over. I'll put some up on our Instagram. The Lake District, Stuart will tell you, like every other place was called like Robinson's Cafe, and
That's
so apparently a
hilarious.
bunch of them went to the Lake District.
Oh, that's
Uh,
too funny.
yeah, so who the freak knows? I
Yeah.
mean, I always tell people the person who I'm most interested in is like the person who decided to leave, and to come over. And
Oh, see,
I
well,
mean,
that's the thing
out
is
with
like
being associated with Oliver Cromwell like Christy was
it
at
was
one
such
point.
a big like they had to flee because he was Oliver
Yeah,
Cromwell's brother-in-law.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you'd think he'd need to if he
We were
was in
really
Ireland
bad, and
for
then we
sure.
got to the States, and so there's in the one of the Carolinas, I think it's North Carolina, but I
Mhm.
can never remember. There's a Whaleyville. You
Nice.
can go to my town, and but they got into a
You
fight.
also have quite a weird last name, I will say. That's maybe what put it not weird, but like unique. That's put me off a little bit because I have the name of like. There's a reason why all of the jerseys of my teams I like, I
Oh,
can get
yeah.
one that says Robinson.
Yeah, it's much easier to
I'm
do
sure
my
there's some,
history. Yeah,
yeah,
because
some
like,
slavery history there maybe or whatever, but I think also it's just a very
it's
common
too
last
common,
name.
yeah. So, Whaleyville, when they were settled there, and then there was a massive fight, and like half of them then moved to Missouri in the Ozarks, and that's the half I'm from. And
Hmm.
then they became moonshiners and stuff, and then got involved in the mafia. And then anyway, and then it just continued. Like
Well, the
these,
Ozarks would be more like Missouri area though,
yeah, like Missouri. I mean, Grandpa was in Missouri, and then he moved to Colorado. So
as
like
you do.
this is this is where my dad's side, my mom's grandparents came over from the Czech Republic in the early 1900s. So that one's easy. We know them. I met them. They didn't speak English.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I mean,
that one's
my VZ grandparents and my Francisco grandma. That side we're good with.
yeah,
The Robinson and the Baxters are still up for debate. We'll
yeah,
see what they do
yeah.
because I feel like there's always four strands coming in at the
There
same
is. There's this
time.
like mesh anyway. But yeah, so
Yeah.
ever since
So
I've discovered this St. Patrick's Day, I've just felt weird about it. I feel like I can't celebrate it anymore. And I
well,
just
because
like,
we just like make it into like a Disney World version of
yeah,
itself. And I've been in Northern Ireland for St. Patrick's. Now, of course, Northern Ireland has its own complicated situation with those holidays, but even in the Republic, like it's not this is an us thing. We
this
really
is enough.
just
Yeah,
and I
like,
think it's also Stuart and I talked about this at the bar, even us, you and I going on this kind of like, here's my four strands discussion is a very American thing. Because if you ask him, he'll be like, oh, like his dad's Scottish and his mom's English, and he's like that's about as far as it goes
he's
for
like,
me. I
that's it. That we're just
don't.
that. I think there's
um,
a desire. And again, you and I and Taylor talked about this once because you and Taylor are
yeah.
both from the South. And
Mm,
I mentioned this before, but there's a desire to have a culture and to be able to
mhm,
connect to a specific history. And a lot of
mhm.
Americans just, I think we really have like a hole there because we don't have that
I think
clear,
so, and I
you know?
think with to a fault sometimes I will say, but I think with Southerners, I think I don't I haven't cared about this because I feel like I'm already a part of that
Yeah.
group. So I don't now I'm not saying we've contributed. We're at a very I would say 25-75 level of positive and negative, 25 being the positive. You could skew those as well pretty hard, but we've got a little music and food, but that's about it. So I mean I think I Taylor, sorry. um but if that slavery thing is really gonna
It's real bad.
send our numbers off. Oh, sorry, we're not allowed to talk about that anymore.
You know. I think they've
Uh,
DEI'd that out or something.
yeah, you can rip that from my dead cold hands as
I
well.
mean,
But so yeah, I think that there is a little bit of that in the sense of feeling as though you're already kind of a part of some distinct bit too. And you talk about it like being out west. I mean, when I talked to Christy a lot, and I was sitting in Miami for this thing and for that AR Southeast event, and I was by myself, and I was about to leave, but my flight was at a god awful time at night, and so I just was getting margaritas at this restaurant. I was like, oh, you might as well. And a mariachi band just showed up, and I was like, now I'll tell you what doesn't happen in the South. Mariachi bands just showing up. I mean, probably on occasion, but I was just like, oh, and then you said, well, anyway, I won't say what you said, but I was just like, I felt such pressure when they showed up because no one else was on the porch, and they were just playing at me. At me is the only way, and it was
it's what
delightful
happens.
and wonderful and amazing. But I just was like, my eyes were like this big, like I
It's
I
so
don't
funny
know.
because
There was just no one else out there.
there's just I have that experience has happened to me 1 million times because there's always if you're at a Mexican restaurant in Colorado, there is a mariachi band. And
Yeah,
you're almost always one of like 3 tables. So they're just gonna play at you because there's no one else, you know.
yeah,
Uh, so
they were
I'm
amazing
very
and
used to it, but
entertaining.
also like this I think this is a big part of what I miss so much when I go to like Mexican restaurants in Florida. I'm just like there's just lack of atmosphere. I think I need
Well,
a
you just need to
mariachi band to be playing
go
at me.
down south a little bit more. Go to
Gotta
Miami.
go
They're
find those
there.
mariachi bands. They're
Yeah.
ubiquitous in Colorado. There's a
And it
mariachi
was
band.
so speaking of culture, it was insane to be in that part of Florida, which is so different from what I would say is the southern part of Florida, like the Panhandle, and then like your part of Florida, which feels a little culturally ambiguous to me, honestly.
Yes, I agree with
No
that.
less gorgeous, but a little. I'm not quite sure where it sits, and going to South Florida, where honestly I felt bad for not knowing Spanish, and I was in
Oh,
America,
yeah.
but I do that. I feel that often, but like when I say I spoke to, other than at the conference, I don't think I spoke to a single person that was like where English wasn't their second language, and
Yeah.
I just felt bad about it,
Yeah.
like the whole time, and you know. I think that that is a culture in and of itself. Of course it is. But I mean, just a really interesting thing to visit when you see. And also, Christy and I were talking about picking apart the different, like I would talk to people from Cuba and people from Mexico, and just to pick apart all the different like nuances that come from what
Mhm.
we would call, Latin culture, which of course is such a big, huge thing
Yeah. It's
with
so
its own
yeah, we kind
stuff.
of put these umbrella terms over these places, but they're so different. And like when you start to see them, just I mean, honestly, just like Ireland and Scotland, two very different
Mm,
cultures that we've kind of meshed together out of
that's
laziness.
right.
And we do that with Latin cultures as well. Like, oh, or like African cultures or,
Oh,
Asian cultures half
100%.
the time. We're just like, oh, all of this is probably the same because, you know,
Right. In my textbook for African traditional religions, it just says we put African traditional religions is kind of a category in religious
uh-huh.
studies, and it's getting more nuanced now, but it was for a very long time. Just every religion of every tribe of every country in Africa is ATR, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of these things where it's said in the textbook I was teaching out of, which was not that it was recently published. This is because we haven't studied it enough. They actually admitted it. They're like, we haven't studied it enough, so
We
that's why
haven't
it's there. We
we haven't
haven't
done the
done the
work.
work. So,
Yeah.
and I just thought that was a wild thing that they would just
I mean,
sploosh all that together.
I almost am like proud of them for admitting it, but like
Yeah, yeah.
it's true though. We do. We have this tendency or we do it with like this idea of oh, indigenous religions. But like
Oh yeah,
indigenous religions are so vastly different, especially if
they are.
you're not even trying to narrow it down to a place. Like goodness, but we do this. Like, you and I both when we teach world religions, I get 2 class periods to talk about indigenous
Same.
religions. And it's
Hmm.
like, hey, guess what? We cannot cover indigenous religions even in a tiny bit in 2 class periods. Like,
And do you include? the ones like Aztec, Inca, like Egyptian, Greek,
right? Like
Roman, like the ones that are what you would maybe call people don't practice. I'm sure some people do, but I don't know.
the like most like smaller, mostly dead ones, you know? Like
Yeah, like I
yeah,
don't know how you call a religion dead. That's a question in itself. But I don't know the answer, so
I don't
I don't
either. I
know.
mean,
But
because you would think this with like Greek, right? Greek
yeah,
religion. You'd be like,
yeah,
"Oh, this is dead." But like
I'm
it's
sure there's
not
people
fully.
that
Like there's still people
that's right.
doing that. I know there's still people practicing like Mayan and stuff, but like
Yeah, yeah.
I did have to teach it in one of my classes when I taught that Eastern Humanities class a couple years
Mm,
ago. We covered Maya and the Aboriginal Indigenous religion in
mm-hmm.
Australia as well. And just the immense amount of unpreparedness that I am for teaching this many Indigenous religions.
Right.
It was like,
Well,
I
because
need
it isn't
7
right.
more degrees to do this. This is a lot.
And about 7 more classes. I mean, the
Yeah.
reason I asked that wasn't to, like, put you on the spot. It
Oh,
was
no.
because I didn't teach Aztec, Incan, Egyptian,
In my
eh,
world religion class, we
or
don't. We
or
do
Greek.
we do Lakota and we do Yoruba, and those are the 2 that we cover. Um,
Yeah. I did American Indigenous. I did African traditional religions get their own 2 days. Oh,
oh, sorry.
good for them. But I did also, Aboriginal Indigenous traditions too. But again, you're quite right. We're very unqualified for it, and honestly, just having to make those choices, um, it felt kind of upsetting in a way because like
Yes.
I don't have to. I mean, you always have to leave stuff out, but you're giving a whole week to Christianity, for instance. I'll use my own tradition and
Yeah.
or a whole 2 days or whatever your week is like teaching, and then you have to do all of the indigenous in 2 days. Like
Exactly,
that's
right? It's like
Christianity can't even be covered in 2 days, let alone indigenous as the big blanket term, you
we
know?
just spent before spring break, we spent a whole week covering Zoroastrianism, which is an incredibly important religion, and I
Mhm, mhm.
100% believe we should spend a week covering it. But 200,000 people practice that in total worldwide. And
Right.
then we're like, let's give half of a class period to Yoruba, which is one of the like biggest religions, and it just gets this like 20
It'd be
minute.
interesting to do a paper or something on world religions classes and how we weight certain traditions over others in textbooks and things like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I know there's another duo of 2 female professors that do a podcast called Keeping It 100 or Keeping It 101. I can't remember exactly. And they talk about world religions, but they have talked about this very issue. I don't know if they've written anything about it or if there's a paper out there, but
We
they
should
brought
do
this
a
up too.
combo
We should join
podcast.
forces with them.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
taking
it
it
is very
back to
fascinating.
Ireland,
Yes.
so I did my PhD on Northern Ireland on the Troubles, theology. I did an ethnographic study that you could also argue is constructive and systematic and everything else because it's the UK and history, very history heavy, I will say.
All of the things.
Um, all the things. And I did interviews and stuff with people and sort of tried to construct what would create a theology of reconciliation. So, what was the background that led them? It was also kind of sociology as well, as to say, like, what are the things that we can intervene on that would make someone who is in the same country come to theological conclusions that reflected more reconciliation and peace building versus violence, which was also that was kind of the precursor to bad theology, which I talk about a lot. It's
Mhm.
I would talk to
Yeah.
some people, not of my own accord, not that I wanted to, but that sort of demanded to be talked to and heard, um, as they do, about their theologies of violence. Now, I didn't include that in the PhD because my advisor quite rightly was like, don't touch that right now. I got to touch it later. Sounds creepy, but she was right. Of course she was. Um, she was kind of the opposite of Heather in that way. Heather was like include everything, and like
Heather's like, include
Cecilia was like,
everything. Cecilia's like,
I don't do that
include
one.
as little as possible.
Yeah, I don't actually use. Here's an interesting thing. I don't use the word sectarianism once in my PhD. It is, you can't find it.
I mean,
It's because
I I absolutely support that decision. Was
yeah,
it very hard to
she's
not say it?
so sectarianism. If you guys don't know, is this idea specifically? It can be any group. You could say Sunni and Shia Muslims. They're sectarian. It's basically any group within a specific recognized, I would say, religion, but they're divided inside of the religion and they're fighting. Like Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland would be a key example of sectarianism.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she was like, it's too contested, so you don't see it a single time because I went and used it. I was like, thesaurus, thesaurus, thesaurus.
I was gonna say how hard was it for you to keep that aside, like to keep wanting to say sectarianism and having to avoid it?
And
I
having to
can
use it.
only
I was just
imagine.
like, they're in a fight. They're in a fight.
They're in a fight.
Um, they're in a fight. It was really hard, and also I'm like you. I'm quite stubborn, and I was back then as well. Now I'm like learned stubborn, but back then I was unlearned stubborn, which
Yeah.
is its own beast. And so I think with her, I always say that I could have never had another PhD supervisor other than Cecilia because she was no joke. Probably about she was much taller than me, and I'm 5'8", and just sort of like no nonsense. Like she used to be a nun, like Catholic, like just lived in Ireland. Just she had to be all of these. She's like Sister Mary Michael from the Dairy Girls,
Yes.
except like less side quips of hilarity.
Okay.
Like,
Just very serious.
and I need,
Yeah.
but yeah, and didn't wear the garb clearly because she
Right.
was not in that world anymore. But I needed that because I kind of needed to fear her a little bit. And like I didn't grow up Catholic, but man, I felt like I did for those 4 years. Oh, she ran a tight ship, and like I appreciate it because so I think the annoying thing for me was not so much that I couldn't, well, it was that I couldn't use word, but it was that I didn't understand why I couldn't use. Now I do.
Oh yeah.
Now I'm like, oh, she was right.
Yeah.
Shock.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's the thing for all you folks getting PhDs out there. Just know that unless you have a real jerkwad of a supervisor, they're typically looking out for you.
Yes.
Um,
I think
and listen to them if you trust them in that way. Because I now I look back and I'm like, of course I didn't do that. That
I think the
was an
best
insane
the best advice I ever got was to find a supervisor that you could trust. And then also, like when you're doing your dissertation, to hold it very loosely and not get too precious about it. Because if they tell you, like, you need to do this or that, or you need to cut out this or that, you need to do that and not like cling on to it with all your might because you're just going to suffer. That's just going to hurt you in the long run. Like you said, they know what they're doing. You should trust them.
The phrase that I've used that she gave me, I use it all the time. You'll have heard on this podcast. Is she said, and I now, sorry, I now realize that she used it because she could see the stubbornness in me. Like she kept saying to me, "This is not the last thing you're gonna write."
Yeah.
Now, and she was, my God, was she right? I wrote a whole book on bad theology that starts with me using that bit for my dissertation
Yeah.
that I couldn't put into my PhD. So it's like I think she was trying to keep me off the edge of the
Yeah.
cliff by saying that, but she could also recognize that I was already wanting to skip to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was trying to get me past that thing. And I know a lot of people who are in this world that want to skip on without sort of having to pay the dues. And as far as we are in 2025, you've got to pay those dues. And I was being a bit of a baby
Mhm.
about it. And I
You
just
do.
wanted to be like, well, why can't I use sectarianism? That's what it is. She was like, if you go into that Viva, they are going to spend a solid hour talking about that one word.
Yeah.
And you know what
And
never
you
got
don't
brought up in my dissertation?
sectarianism,
Sectarianism.
which is
And
great.
I was like,
Yeah.
freaking right.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's so here's my question though, as somebody who studied sectarianism, like when you're thinking about a kind of ultimate if there's a ultimate issue going on, right? We've been talking about this. Like we tend to be too lazy to like really understand, okay, here's Scottish culture, here's Irish culture, here's this or that.
Mhm.
Like what is the misunderstanding or the like thing that you think is happening with sectarianism in terms of that kind of situation?
In Northern
Because
Ireland or in Scotland or
I
just in
mean,
general?
just generally, but you can specifically talk
That
about
it's a
Northern Ireland if you
that
want.
it's about religion,
Okay.
honestly. Um, it's about identity, I think.
Yeah.
And I think those are they can be one and the same thing, but that they're not as it goes. Like, um, I think well, no, I'm supposed to not say I think. She also taught me that. Don't say I think. Say it is. Sectarianism in Northern Ireland, and I would argue in Scotland as well, religion was used as fuel to the fire. I would say it's something that makes you passionate. It's something that
Yes.
makes you feel things. We can see this in America right now, honestly, if
I
you
was
want to
just
think
gonna
of a
say,
parallel
yeah.
in political affiliation, social status, all of that sort of stuff is being used and it's being manipulated and it's being used by people who are in power to
Mhm.
keep power, but
Mhm.
also to divide people who they want to keep subservient in a way.
Yeah.
Because if you're fighting at a football game about, uh, you know, Rangers versus Celtic, then you're not really screaming about someone who's cutting your benefits and that kind of thing. You know, that it's a distraction in a
It
way.
is.
And so
Yeah.
I would say the idea that people think it's about religion or politics or football or any of that, I would say no. It certainly is about identity, but it's a manipulated identity.
It's a
So it's
manipulate. I
it's an
think that's
identity that people are using to keep power.
I think that's
Um,
such an important thing for us to think about, like you said right now too, because
mm,
what I think we're realizing, especially in this past week, is that Republican and Democrat, for the most part, for those of us who are the normal people, we have far more in common in terms of the situations that we're in, the things that we need, and like what we can and can't do to fight for things. And the people in power are using and for a lot of it it's using things like religion, but it's also using buzzwords, so that you
mm,
can start throwing out insults without actually knowing what those things mean.
mhm.
Um,
Well, they've seen what gets us all up in arms. You
yeah,
know,
like
they
getting
see
really
that
hung up
sport
on
and
a certain
religion and
issue,
politics.
getting
Yep.
really
All of that.
kind
All of
of
that.
like the Republican that started in the 80s or whatever with like the switch on abortion issue. Like SBC used to be pro choice and
Yep.
switching over into this in kind of incredibly extreme way of understanding abortion and
Yeah.
what kinds of stuff is going on is so manipulative just to keep people voting Republican so that you have so many people who say like, well, I'm a single issue voter or whatever. And because I only got to spend a weekend in Belfast, and it was
Mm.
one of my favorite cities that I've been to, even though it was such a short period. Um,
It's a
I
great
had
city.
every intention of going back. I've spent much more time in the Republic of Ireland than
Mm,
I've been there several times, but I felt like in the Republic you could almost kind of ignore some of the stuff that, especially because I was mostly in the South in Kerry, and
mm,
it wasn't so in your face. And whereas like in Belfast, it was from the moment I flew in, it was very in your face about these issues, and I just kept having that same sense of uh, this isn't actually like you said, it's not a religious divide. It's also not a political divide in the way that it seems like it is. But
mhm.
yeah, what is keeping people from being able to have that conversation? And I think you're quite right.
Well, I
It's
mean,
the
I
people
think
in power keeping them from having that
and
conversation.
I think Belfast, if you ever go, is a real, we look at the world we live in now, it is a real warning as
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
what it could become again, I would argue.
Absolutely.
Because under Jim
The
Crow, we
murals.
certainly had, yeah,
I mean, the
there's
murals alone are
walls,
just
there's
the wall.
all of the buses in Belfast. You can't go from, I used to live in the Holy Lands, which was near, well, it was sort of in an in between lands. It's where students lived,
Hmm.
so it was kind of like a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Um, but to get to the Falls Road or to get to Shankill, which are two quite predominant roads in terms of Catholic and Protestant folks, you had to go through the city center. Well, the buses, as it works, is that you have to get off at the city center and then you have to get on your respective buses to go to these places. Now, the reasoning behind that is so you could, what the government tells you is that people will fight. So it means that if they have to be on the same bus together, so we have to separate them and they won't fight and peace will be had, right?
Mm.
Now, think about that in terms of what we had in the bus boycotts and things like that.
Yeah.
If we keep them separate, they won't fight. So this is for your own good. That's the
Yeah.
rhetoric you're getting.
Yeah.
It's for your own good. If we don't put kids in Belfast in school together, that's why there's Catholic schools. That's why there's Protestants. Very easy to figure out which or which. Put a saint in front of it. You're at a Catholic school. Well, we need to keep them separate to keep the peace, right? It's to keep the peace. Think about this in our context in the U.S. It's bullshit. It's not real. What they're trying to do is they're trying to keep you separate, and not only separate, but they're trying to keep you afraid of the other person. Because once you sit down and you start talking and you start having conversations with folks and you're like, oh, well, you don't have horns under your hair. Like, what do you mean? Well, then you start to become a community, going full circle to Ayn Rand.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start getting powerful
Mm-hmm.
and you start rising up and saying, well, actually, you've told us a lie. Like, you've not separated these buses to keep us from fighting. You've separated them so we don't get to know each other.
Yeah.
And that to me is, I did a lot of work in the reconciliation communities, Corrymeela, Cornerstone, and other ones that were Clonard Monastery, blah, blah. Once you got these kids together, I was talking to a leader of Corrymeela, and it was out by the beach. It was in this kind of neutral zone, Ballycastle. And I talked to the leader and I said, what's the first thing you do when you bring in these Catholic and Protestant kids? Like, how do you get that? He's like, I throw a football on the ground. And I said, what do you don't give them a chat? Or he goes, no, I don't talk to them. He goes, I throw a football in there. And you know what they start doing? They start picking teams. And I was like, oh God. So they start dividing up. And he's like, no, they figure out who's good at football. And that's who they pick. And I was like, oh. He goes, these kids don't know. I mean, they're not, and it's not just kids, it's I was taught my whole life that, about stuff like the separate but equal thing in terms of race in the South. And it's absolute and total bullshit. It is not real. Well, first of all, that phrase is not real, and it isn't real. But it's also this idea that, like, when you actually start getting people together, and it becomes a norm, that's the most powerful thing that you have against these people who are trying to divide you. So when you talk about sectarianism, all I see is we talk about them and the government and whoever's up top. It's the people. It is the government, actually. Like, it's these people who create the. And honestly, I think what we're seeing is, sadly, a retaliation against us pushing back against a lot of this stuff that they wanted to use to control. And sorry, this is my whiskey rant, Christy. No, I told you I'm whiskey weak. I re-listened and I said I'm whiskey weak. Or no, I'm liquor weak.
You did. And we're like, let's have whiskey.
Let's have whiskey and then talk about Northern Ireland. Cool. Anyway, it's just just know that it's being used. If you have suspicions of people like, oh, they're taking our jobs, or oh, you can't marry someone who's X, Y, and Z, or oh, my kid's X, Y, and Z, and that means they're terrible. No, that rhetoric is being told to you to make you do something that someone else who's above you socioeconomically and politically to make you think so.
And I think this is the biggest thing that I don't know. I do feel that I see this happening in real time here. There's a kind of awakening of many people again, Republicans and Democrats, realizing that the politicians are not for us.
Right.
Especially the higher up ones, like president currently definitely is not. But like, we can't assume those things because we have to be more community. But like, there's like conversations. Oh, like, yes, we do need to be concerned about all of these government organizations, including the ones that maybe we weren't always so concerned about before. The left has not always been great at working or thinking about veterans. And like, we've kind of relegated veterans and vet stuff to the right because we associate the military with the right. But like, we should fight for them too. Like, we should be caring about all of these things. And I think that is exactly what you're saying. They've been trying to keep us so separated to have this. And that was the thing that I noticed too when I was in Belfast. One of the days I was there for a conference on uh, theopoetics, and it was called God After God Symposium, and it was really lovely kind of conversation about the ways of talking about God through theopoetics. And then I had stayed an extra day because I wanted to be able to do a little bit of sightseeing and stuff, because I genuinely never thought I would be able to go to Belfast. It wasn't like on my list of places because I was scared of it for a long time. I was
Mm,
like, that's where bad things happen. Like,
yeah.
it felt
My mom
dangerous to
cried
go
when I
to.
told her I was doing my field work there. She was very upset about it.
Like, it just felt like it was a really scary thing. And so I was like, I want to have a day in Belfast. And so I did as I always do. If you put me anywhere that has a hop on, hop off bus, I'm gonna do it.
Don't do it.
And so I did, and it was a great tour because they took us through all sorts of, we went through all of the neighborhoods, like Catholic, Protestant, everywhere. We went and saw all of the murals. They specifically drove us up to the wall and they talked about the wall, and they mentioned that there had been a recent vote of whether to keep it up or not, and that it had been almost unanimously voted to keep it up. And
Isn't that
somebody on the
interesting?
bus was like, "Why do you think that is?" And they said almost what you just said, is like they're afraid.
Mm,
They're
yep.
afraid of what will happen when it comes down. They're afraid of
I
what.
remember when that vote took place. It was a big deal.
Yeah, it was, and it was so heartbreaking to hear that and to see the kinds of things that, there's this kind of live, it's a city that's a living memorial to the
Mm.
tragedy of it all, but it's also like not, it's, I don't know,
I
it's
do think
almost
it's
like
interesting. Go
it's
ahead.
not quite, it's still happening. Like, there's the
Oh
tragedy
yeah.
is still happening. It's just not happening with like bombs at the moment.
I did the hop on, hop off bus, and I felt exactly that. It felt like because of having studied it, it felt like I was a voyeur because you go down these neighborhoods where people still live. They're
Yeah.
just walking around looking at you, staring at them like goldfish in a bowl. And it's like they still live on this road, they still have this wall, and you were just doing a hop on, hop off bus. And this is not against them, but it was when they opened the Titanic Museum, and I thought, I thought it was great because I love Belfast. It's one of my favorite, if it's probably my second favorite city in the world. And I love it for all that it is and all that it isn't. But it did feel like they were exploiting it, because a
Mm.
lot of their tourism was about the stuff that happened. And even it was funny because they opened the Titanic and they were like, look, not a tragic, this isn't a tragic thing. And I
I
was
mean, it
like, do
is a
you
little
know
bit
what happened
tragic, but like,
to the Titanic? Wow. And they would have people out in the selling the bumper stickers built by an Irishman, sank by an Englishman. And I was like, oh, reconciliation
did you go to
101.
did you go to that Titanic?
Yeah, I
It's
did, yeah.
fantastic. I went. I
It's
loved it.
fantastic. I mean, it's great. It's just, but it is, and I took students there from Queen's University, Charlotte, before the right
Right before the
March of
pandemic.
2020,
Yeah.
right before the lockdown. And I remember sitting there and looking at stuff and thinking they want people to think they've moved past this and they're
Yeah.
still living it.
Yeah.
And they also want the people who live there to move past it. I remember talking to some people about the good, and again, this is a parallel to us here, talking about the Good Friday Agreement, which ultimately kind of ended what we know as kind of the troubles as they were.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember asking a government person who was a part of the negotiation. I said, what did you do? Like, you want to know, like, how did you get these groups to sign, both sides to sign this? He goes, they got tired. And I went, he's a mediator. And I was like, what? And he was like, sometimes with conflicts so big, you have to wait for people to get tired.
Yeah.
And when they get tired of the violence, they get tired of the death, they don't care anymore what the government says.
Oh,
They're tired and
they're
they
just
don't
tired.
they're over it. And so that level of manipulation we were talking about, it doesn't
Yeah.
work anymore because you can't distract people with football because they're tired.
Yeah.
And I keep that with me when looking at certain conflicts because I think I wonder if they're not going to get there till they're tired. And I think about that in terms of the states as well, is like, is it just going to have to get so bad,
Yeah. I mean,
you know?
it's a good question. How, like, what will it take for us to be better at avoiding and overcoming the differences and getting past all that? Or are we just going to give up and say, you know what, just build a wall between us? Like,
Yeah.
and
And that's
that,
what I think. I mean, we do have moments of great bravery. I think like the civil rights movement's a great example of the people
Mhm.
rising up.
Yeah,
Certainly possible.
it
And
is
those people
certainly.
weren't tired. They were tireless, I would
Yes.
say, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
mean,
I think there's also examples on the other side is where people just kind of said, and I think the walls, the decisions that are made now are a result of the fact that that agreement wasn't signed in confetti and flurry, despite what the end of Dairy Girl said. It was actually, I wept. If you watch Dairy Girls TV show at the end, the last episode, or at least I think the second to last, or maybe the last one, is them signing the Good Friday Agreement.
mhm.
You know, they've lived through this '90s time period,
Yeah.
and they get to be a part of the vote.
Yeah.
But you can kind of see when they're voting, it's less about it. They're not excited like they're jumping through the roof. They're just like, we have to do this. It
Yes.
was almost like we're not going to make it
Yeah.
if we don't do this
Yeah. I
as
think
a
that's
people.
absolutely, I think that's the
Um,
vibe I got from that as well. A
and so,
very, yeah, a very sincere, this is how we stop from destroying ourselves kind of moment.
and you know, I think you have to get that to the point where the government's like, nothing's gonna, we can't manipulate this anymore. We actually have to do something. So it's either a rising up or it's a saying we're gonna annihilate each other. And I think the result of that sort of resigned piece is that they're still fearful. Like they didn't choose that. Like so it means those walls stay up and those neighborhoods are the way that they are. And anyway, but because I'm hopeful, the Reverend Doctor says
Yes,
we can rise up.
we
We can
can.
do that. We don't have to wait to that, and we don't have to let them build the walls and do all of that. We can. We don't have to go back to 1954.
We don't.
Um,
And I am hopeful. I see these town halls that people are going to, and I see hope in them. I think they're made where they're yelling, like people are just going and yelling at politicians. I'm like, this is exactly what we need to be doing. We need to be standing up and
when they started protesting the Tesla factories, I was like, good,
yeah,
good,
yeah. That there needs to
yeah.
be the kind of active sorry, my computer.
Oh, I thought you were negotiating a penny.
Nope, Penny started barking, so I muted myself for a minute, and then like
Oh,
stuff popped up and I can't get it to go away, so it's fine. You can't see any of this. This is only for me. Um,
yeah. No,
but
I'm
no,
good.
it we have every possible ability. We are many. We outnumber them,
Hmm.
and we
Hmm.
have so many of the same desires and interests and experiences, and none of us are going to be billionaires. That is just not, like, we're not going to get to billionaire status, so we don't need to pretend like that's our goal. I think that kind of desire of like, oh, what if I could become a billionaire and let me just like live my life as if that's a possibility. I think that's also a manipulation. Like, none of those people did that. Not one of these
Hmm.
people is a self-made billionaire. They tell you that they are. They're not.
Hmm.
And then,
No, and I think with that too is when I theologically to move it into the theology world is
yeah.
that in my dissertation at least I talked about reconciliation and people don't like that word. They see it as kind of a throwaway word now because the government used it so much. And
Mm,
I came up with this other idea of like, what if we have to have truth and justice, repentance and forgiveness operating at the same time? So in Northern Ireland, you see a real emphasis on repentance and forgiveness. Oh, you need to do this, you need to do this, but they left out the truth and the justice part of
mm,
like people can't just forgive people um, without having that element. And
yeah.
I talk about it. The theology part of that is that sometimes in order to forgive and even to learn the truth and to receive justice and to still forgive,
Hmm.
that's reconciliation
Yeah.
actually, and that sometimes takes a otherworldly event to make you be able to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
you see it in a lot of I watch a lot of Dateline, as we talk about often. And some of the stuff where people forgive people on the stand and things like that, they don't deserve that in my mind, honestly. But they get it because the victims chose to do that. But I feel like they usually talk about, I had to find, it's not always religious, but sometimes it is. But they had to
Mhm.
find strength outside of themselves because I don't think it's our natural inclination to forgive, honestly. I think it's not, but again, that's another manipulation. I really do. I think socially they're training us to, the reaction is to, you lose the game and you fight,
Yeah. Well,
or
and
you,
to be
you talk,
outraged about stuff, like
yep.
uh, manufactured outrage is a huge thing right now. We get outraged
Hmm.
about everything. There's no like, oh, that's annoying. It goes straight to outrage.
Hmm.
And there's also, and I know, we've talked about this briefly, but there's no like reconciliation in terms of like, is this something I need to be making a huge deal out of? Or is this like somebody made a mistake and I can like on a much smaller scale deal with it? Uh how do we differentiate between here's something that maybe needs a lot more reckoning, and
Hmm.
here's something that
Hmm.
needs like a chit chat. Like how do
Hmm.
we
Right.
start to be able to tell the difference between those two occurrences instead of just constantly being like outrage
Yeah.
and you
Outrage.
don't
Yeah, no,
deserve
you're right. And yeah,
forgiveness. And to
get into
think
good
like,
trouble. Get into good trouble.
yeah, what kinds of things can we look for in order to forgive and to model forgiveness to other people? I think that needs to be a bigger
Yeah.
discussion. Yeah.
When you to put a bow on it, when you think about Ireland in your journeys, not necessarily in this combo, but what is the like overwhelming feeling that you get about that place now that we've talked about, now that we're
Yeah,
well
one
we're well done with our I've definitely finished my,
this is
which
it's a
is a
delightful
mistake
drink.
for everyone in the Robinson Gibb household.
My apologies to Stuart. This is this was my
Mhm.
pick for a drink. Mm.
Mhm.
I do think that one of the things, and um again, like I said, most of my um experience comes from like County Kerry. I have friends that live there and spent a decent amount of time. I think the Irish people are some of the most loving human beings I've ever known. And
Mhm.
and they have this immense capacity to empathize, which I find really unique, to be able to see people elsewhere. I think that I've seen this a lot with Palestine, especially, but like I saw this when I was there, whenever I visited, their ability to just like see other people who are suffering and be like,
Mm.
we understand, we can empathize with you, and here's how we can help, here's how we can come stand alongside of you. I think a lot of this probably has to do with their history, the suffering Ireland as a whole has gone through.
Mhm.
Um, but like they just individually, it's just like the whole, but also individually, people just are so loving, and like kind. Just a genuine kindness that's kind of that sarcastic kindness, that
Did I?
yeah. They're not necessarily just going to be nice to you all the time, but they're going to be kind to you. Um, when I was visiting my friend
Just go to
Kira,
Temple Bar in Dublin and tell them you're American and see how it goes.
um, I was visiting my friend Kira in this tiny town on the coast called Kirseveen,
Mm.
and um, she had to work, and it was a Sunday. She worked at a hotel. She had to work, and so she was like, "I'm going to be at work for X amount of time," and she goes, "You can just like hang out and basically like walk around the town, see what's what." Well, it was a Sunday morning in a tiny Irish town, so literally nothing was open. Um
Heathen.
So I stumbled finally upon there was one pub that was open because it was attached to another hotel. And I went in there and there were probably only like 6 people in there and they just were like, "Oh, welcome." Like immediately like just took me in and I spent the day hanging out with them and they were hilarious and great fun and we had a lovely time, but I made all these new friends and then she found me and she was like, "Where have you been?" I was making new friends at
Just
the
hanging
pub
out.
because we were the only
Yeah.
ones not in church.
um,
Yeah, it
okay,
was.
this is our group chat. This is our group chat that's going off right now.
Oh, oh, look at that.
How do I make it not ding? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't either. All
Okay.
right, whatever. Tell them to quit texting. So I think for me, it would definitely be along what you were saying. I spent more time in Northern Ireland than the Free State, as they call it, up in the north, than the Republic. But certainly, I would say what can come from resilience, I think, is a real thing. So people talk about the Irish charm,
Mhm,
but you have to realize a lot of that Irish charm, if you look at the history of the famine and you look at the history of immigration and the discrimination that they got when they immigrated to the places they immigrated to because they were starving to death, the wars, the way they were used by both the continent and England, well, Cromwell
mhm.
there,
Yeah.
Christie's relatives.
So sorry.
Um, and and the North as well, and the conflict that happened there because of, I would argue, started with colonialization as well. There, there is this idea of things, and I feel this growing up in the South too, is that there can be something that comes from deep, deep oppression, and by the South, I'm not talking about white people, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's a lot of cultural stuff that can come from that, from really, have being oppressed for so long and having such bad things happen, is that you do, as you said, become more empathetic, and you do become, it, you do produce music and art and stuff that
Oh, yeah.
helped you to get through.
Yeah.
And, like these sort of things that we associate with the Irish and with other places, as you said, Israel, Palestine, that was an example that I experienced too when I was there, as well as the hospitality,
Mhm.
welcoming the stranger in your
Yeah.
midst. All very, again, I feel like we really have come full circle to Ayn Rand. It's like all of the stuff about community resilience and the stuff that can be built out of a community of oppression, comes from, is present in Ireland and the
Yeah.
Republic and Northern Ireland, from
Yeah.
both sides of the divide, as it were.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting thing we see in the US as well, is that you get, I recommended this to Taylor, but the documentary The Dirty South by Rich Hall, you get music, you get rock and roll, you get
Yeah.
gospel, you get all of these works of literature. Even, you talk about not just from people of color, but Tennessee Williams. Taylor and I talked about Tennessee Williams and this idea of like, what was it like to be a gay man in this
Yeah.
time period,
Oh,
like, or a gay person,
yeah.
during this time period, and writing, and how, what was it, but I think you can build something beautiful out of these things, and that is not to glamorize oppression. It's to
No.
say that the stuff that makes you resilient enough to survive oppression, I think, can create something beautiful and
Yes.
amazing. And to me, that's what Ireland is it's the clover and the leprechauns and all of that stuff are fine, but I do think the stuff that, the music we play and the dances, the, Irish dancing and the drinks, all of this is, these are essentially coping mechanisms that they had, and they built a beautiful culture out of it.
Absolutely. I think about in my classes, I talk about this example. Basically, they call it the real life Lord of the Flies, but it is
Mhm.
a group of 5 boys from Tonga who got stranded on an island for 18 months.
Oh,
And they eventually get found. They were able to build a raft, and a fisherman finds them and then brings them back to Tonga. But during the time that they were stranded on this island, um, they talk about in the little documentary I show my students. They built. a way to catch fresh water for
Mm.
rainwater. And they built themselves like little huts, but they also built a guitar. They made a guitar out of like
Aw.
coconuts and stuff, and they made a
Mm.
badminton court.
Oh.
And I said, what do you think if you're stranded on a desert island and you have only so much resources, why would you choose to make a guitar? Like, what does this tell us? And I think that one of the things that we don't tend to think about, and one of the things that is so important in this moment, especially for us, is that life is supposed to include beauty and joy. And when we
Mm.
are in these moments of extreme suffering, oppression, whatever it is, to create things that are beautiful and joyful is not to ignore that, but it's to bring us out. Like, these are the things that help us survive, because we don't want
Mhm.
life to just be about survival. It has to also have these aspects. And I think that when you look at cultures that have such deep suffering and you realize that they also have such beautiful art, it should be a testament of like the reason that they have survived is the art. The art
Mm.
isn't
Mhm.
superfluous to the survival. um, the art isn't like, oh, it's nice that the Irish made it through that manufactured famine, but like, and then also gave us this fun music. But it's like, no, no, the music is there because they were surviving. Like,
Right.
this is part of it,
Yeah.
and we can
And to know that that can
look for
also be
this.
used as a manipulation too. I mean, you saw the commercial, at least when I did one that was about the World War II guys that played soccer. They paused fighting, which was apparently a
Oh,
real story. The John Lewis commercial, and they came. It was like both sides came and played soccer, and
uh-huh.
then they had to go back to fighting
Yeah.
like the next
Or
day.
like,
And
have
it's
you
like
ever seen that?
they can use the stuff that we use to bring joy,
Mhm.
the art
Yes.
and the sport and the stuff. They can use that because they see that that brings joy. So there's
So then
it's a
yeah.
means of getting you, you
Yeah.
know.
There's that movie about during World War One when the German troops and it was the there was, oh god, I don't know my words for World War One.
It may have been World War One. We're probably talking
But it
about the
wasn't
same
soccer.
thing.
They paused fighting to have like a Christmas dinner. They started singing Silent Night,
Oh,
and then they all like had a Christmas celebration. They all came together and like pooled their resources, like had a truce for Christmas. And apparently this happened pretty like all over the place. It wasn't like isolated incidents. It was like because soldiers don't want to fight each other. Like,
they
these
don't.
aren't our
It's not
wars.
fun.
These aren't benefiting us. These are
Mm-mm.
benefiting only those people in power, and they're the
Yep.
ones, sending them out.
And they're
And
trying
so
to
to
find joy in the midst of
find
hell,
these
yeah.
ways to connect with the other side and realize like none of us want this.
Mhm.
How can
Mhm.
we stop it? What can we do? And like, yeah, soccer or singing or whatever is like bringing people together. Don't let
Yep.
them take it away then, you know?
Right. And hopefully we can rise up before we
Yeah.
get too tired,
Yeah.
because I think there is something once we get too tired,
You just
we'll
give
let them
up.
separate us
Yeah.
for the next thing. Mhm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, on that note, we love you, Ireland. We can't
We
wait to
do.
visit
I
again.
know it's been too long. I need to go. I need to
I know
spend more
it's
time in
been
Belfast.
5 years, which is a lot for
It,
me, I think.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'll try to do some genealogy before I go, and I'll be like one of those Americans that are like, I am
I just
30% Irish.
I just go over and perpetually apologize. So sorry. So sorry. So sorry.
I'm I'm the opposite. I go over and I'm like, I did a PhD on your land.
No, it's
I've
just like
got
they
your
find out my
number.
last name, and this happens a lot. They'll be
Oh,
like,
oh, Christy, yeah,
they'll
yeah.
say like Whaley, oh, and then I go, so sorry, so sorry.
Chris, Christy, that's a revelation right there. I disclaim. We should have done a trigger warning to any Irish people watching this
So
episode.
sorry, y'all. I so sorry.
It was all her fault, really.
Eh,
So, well,
we'll just
guys,
send the villains.
I think we'll finish up. Are you cool with that, Christy?
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah. All
Go
right.
enjoy some real Irish whiskey if you have it. And
Oh no, Patreon.
oh yeah. Oh, we have big news. We have big
We do
news.
have big news. Sorry, the whiskey made us forget. So Stuart helped us.
We
do a Patreon.
we
It's
have it.
patreon.com/theology on the rocks.
Yes.
We're going to do our banned book
Mhm.
book group, and we'll have a live Zoom/prize Zoom thing where we can
Yeah.
all sit and chat and do a book group together. Our first book is George Orwell's 1984, so get to reading it. It's $5 per month if you want to do that. We are also going to record the book group so that you can watch it later. And if you do $1 a month, then you get to watch the video, and you're
Yes.
the only people that get to. If you do the $5, you get to watch the video as well. So
You get to
those are our
watch the
two
video,
tiers because we
but you
are
also get to be in the
simple.
Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to be in the Zoom. You get to chat with us and
Yeah.
give us ideas for all the next stuff we're going to write and talk about. And so 1984, and our date that we have put it down for is April 22nd. That's the day
Yes.
we're going
April
to
22nd.
do our first book group.
We're super
Go ahead.
excited about it. Super excited to like meet and chat with people. Yeah, and we will put all of this in, we'll put the link in our linked tree so you guys will have that. And we will put up a whole bunch of information on the Instagram, which is the only social media we actually use. Sorry if
Pretty
you don't
much.
have Instagram, just go to the link tree. Someday maybe we'll have a website.
Patreon.com/theology on the rocks. And it's really as simple. Sorry, Christian.
No, you're fine. It's going to be great. We're really excited. So, yeah. So for those listening, just keep an eye on that. Again, the links are in our podcast notes as well, so you can always get the link right from where you listen to the podcast too.
But the book has been chosen, so go ahead and
Yep.
start. It's on the shelf somewhere here.
It's
somewhere
yep.
in
It's at my
the
work.
shelf.
I got to get it from work, but it's been a bit since I've read it. So honestly, I'm really excited because
and we'll
it's
have
been
drinks,
a
of
long time.
course, or whatever of your persuasion, and then we'll chat until we don't. We'll just chat until we don't have anything else to say, and have a good night. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
And we can promise you that the money will go towards. Honestly, we want to get some merch, and I think that would probably be the next thing. Like, it definitely will not go for.
Yeah,
It's not gonna.
this is not going to
do
make us
much.
rich and famous. We
No,
mostly
it's
just
not.
we want to get some merch, and we want to also be able to like set up a
Get
website and
Christy a
stuff
light
and
now
get.
because I feel like I'm surpassing you on the
I
light
know.
now.
Well, I have a lamp now. It's my
I'll
podcasting
get
lamp.
Stuart to buy you a computer so we can Patreon. We're GoFunding for Christy to get a computer.
Fund Christy a computer. But yeah, this is all going back into the podcast just so that we can have better
Yeah, for
stuff
sure.
and all of that. And
But also we're doing
yeah.
it because it'll be fun, and we like
Yeah.
community. I like a good book group, honestly.
Same. It's my favorite thing to do is read a book and talk about it. So this is what we're gonna do. So anyway,
Same.
yeah, we'll put all this up. But thanks
All
again,
right.
and we'll see you
Salancha, Salanchava.
Slanjava. See you next week.
Cheers. Bye.